Okay, perfect. All right, thank you. Great. So welcome to our panelists. We have Alex Floyd, who is a Villanova graduate with an MS in Sustainable Engineering. Alex is currently the Senior Sustainability Manager at Tyson Foods, focused on their corporate energy strategy. Alex has a lot of experience in the energy sector, including his work with Harrison Energy Partners and Clear Results. Alex actually started his career as a teacher, first teaching high schoolers and college students. And in addition to his Villanova education, he also holds an AS in nuclear technology and a BS in mechanical engineering from Arkansas Tech University. And then we also have Jennifer Bowe, who is also a Villanova graduate, and she is a BS in biology. Jennifer currently serves as Ocean Spray Cranberries Associate Manager for Global Impact and Sustainability. She oversees the sustainability strategy for the entire cooperative and lead their team's efforts in building healthier people and planet. So prior to her role with Ocean Spray Cranberries, Jennifer worked for, I'm going to pronounce this wrong, but Sierra's as a company network associate. Oh, perfect, thank you. And she also worked with the World Wildlife Fund, so that's awesome. She also served as an AmeriCorps with Knoxville County Community Action Committee. In addition, she also holds an MS in Natural Resources and Environment from the University of Michigan. So thank you so much, you guys, for coming and speaking with us tonight. And then whenever you're ready, you can start your presentation. Thank you guys so much.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks so much for having us. I think we just discussed that I'm going first, so I'll kick us off. Hi, everybody. My name is Jennifer Bowe, as Maddie introduced and shared a little bit about my background. Thanks so much, Maddie, and thanks, Liesl, for inviting me and Alex to join you all on this panel. I do have a few slides just because I'm a very visual person, so I will bring those up now. Let's see, make sure it's working here. I think I just shared my whole screen, but I will pull up this presentation. I can no longer see anyone's face, so Maddie, maybe you can give me a confirmation that I'm sharing my screen.
Yeah, I can see your slides.
Okay, great. As I mentioned, my name is Jen Bowe. I can't believe it's been about 10 years since I was at Villanova, and it's a real pleasure to be back and just, even if it's virtually, to talk to you a little bit about my story and my career. I have been working in environment and sustainability for the past 10 years in some capacity, but really more in corporate sustainability for the past 2.5 years, strictly at Ocean Spray Cranberries, which I'll tell you a little bit about first, and then I'll go into more about my story and my background and how I got here. So without further ado, a little bit more about my role at Ocean Spray. So for those of you that may not be aware, Ocean Spray is actually a farmer-owned cooperative of over 700 family farmers. And this year, in addition to it being a crazy pandemic year, we are also celebrating our 90th anniversary. The co-op does operate across the world, with our growers primarily being in the US and Canada, but as well as Chile. Cranberry is a perennial crop, so it comes back year after year. Some of our bogs are growing and have been growing for well over 100 years, where they're still productive, and we sell products in over 75 countries. So a lot of these facets do play into my role in sustainability, in the sense that our farmer family story and our connection to agriculture is a really unique add in terms of being able to engage farmers really directly on environmental and social issues. And with it, the cranberry being a perennial crop, the idea of multi-generational long-term sustainability is really baked into what our cooperative does. And it's important to note that we, despite being a relatively small company, we are a very big, well-known brand and sell in many countries. So in my role, I get questions and work on projects really across the globe. Our mission at Ocean Spray is to connect farms to families for a better life. So in terms of my role, I really have my work cut out for me because sustainability is ingrained in the business. And this can be both an opportunity and challenge, which I can mention a little bit about, but I'll also talk about my opportunities and challenges as a broader sustainability professional. But specifically at Ocean Spray, what sustainability entails for my role is really overseeing the overall strategy that we're developing as it relates to cultivating the sustainable health of our people and our planet. At Ocean Spray, we really talk about this and organize our work streams in three main pillars. And those are to build more regenerative cranberry agriculture, sustainable operations and supply chain, and purposeful products and packaging. There are a variety of different ways that corporate sustainability strategies structure their programs, as you'll probably hear Alex talk a little bit about, or if you look at what other companies are doing. In Ocean Spray, we've really decided to organize our program around these three pillars because it's a little bit easier to operationalize the various projects and the various environmental and social issues that we want to address in a way that really makes sense to our main business units and the different departments and entities that we're trying to work with. So we do have a bunch of different environmental and social issues that we are trying to address and really bring into the business as both a challenge, a business risks, and for opportunities as well. That's everything from climate change to human rights concerns. So I will talk a little bit more about some of the goals and projects that ladder up underneath these pillars, and I'm happy to answer questions throughout the rest of the discussion. But for regenerative cranberry agriculture, we did set a goal in 2019, and I actually just announced this past spring that we achieved our ambition to sustainably grow and verify 100% of the cranberries that go into our product as sustainably grown. That entails everything from benchmarking our program to third-party standards. The standard that we use is the Sustainable Agriculture Initiative, or SAI platform, and their farm sustainability assessment. So there is another member of my team that actually really manages the ins and outs of this program, and she really did all that benchmarking and did all of the audits that went into actually allowing us to make this claim. And I've had a lot of insight and support and collaboration in working on that pillar. With operations and supply chain, there's a whole host of different projects underneath there. Everything from what we call SEDEX, responsible and ethical sourcing audits. And so that's a international program that's very well known in that space. And so we have audited all of our manufacturing. Oh, I just was hearing some feedback. Hopefully you all can still hear me. So for the other projects that we have in that pillar include a variety of water, energy, and waste efficiency efforts. We launched a new software about a year ago to track all of our environmental data impact metrics in a very centralized manner. So that's been super helpful for us. And then in products and packaging, just really briefly, we have a goal there as well to ensure 100% of our packaging has a sustainable impact by 2025. And that entails a whole host of different metrics, such as ensuring that we have all recyclable packaging, increasing PCR content, even partnering with two new entities that we just recently announced last week. We have partnered with TerraCycle to recycle very difficult to recycle materials. And then we are partnered with Loop, which is an entity that we're working with to design fully reusable packaging. I will also note that I am in the weeds of working on a new climate change strategy for the cooperative, which I won't be able to talk too much about because it's we haven't publicly talked about it yet, but I can certainly answer questions at a really high level. And that is my role at Ocean Spray. Now, in terms of how I got there, as Maddie mentioned, I really started off by focusing on the hard sciences with a biology degree. Within biology, I tended to focus more on ecology type courses. I really enjoyed my course with Dr. Curry and Dr. Chapman, where I did field ecology in the Yucatan, or Dr. Olson and his higher vertebrates course is probably hands down my favorite course. and he was a huge mentor to me while I was at Villanova. From Villanova, I did AmeriCorps, where I did a lot of on-the-ground environmental education, working in communities and schools, in developing a broad sustainability curriculum, as well as some very focused topics such as water quality or local agriculture. From AmeriCorps, I went to grad school and started focusing on some broader global efforts that would address environmental issues at a much larger scale. And it's where I started to get interested in corporate sustainability. Through that program, I was able to do a master's project, which is kind of the culminating capstone project that master's students in that program do. And that was a project for a real life client, which was the World Wildlife Fund. And with WWF, we were exploring environmental trade-offs of sourcing a wide variety of agricultural commodities and developing a decision-making framework for companies to think through how their sourcing decisions affect those environmental impacts. I was also able to get an internship with WWF, essentially doing a very similar project, but for a specific client, which was a large paper producer, and we were exploring alternative fibers to source as an alternative to hardwood trees. And then for my first position out of grad school, I worked for, as Maddie mentioned, the Entity Series, which is a bit like, it's kind of a combination between an advocacy organization, it is an NGO, ensuring sustainability is the bottom line, is their tagline, but it's also a bit like a consultant. So I was working on their corporate engagement team, working directly with corporate members in our membership, really encouraging them and advising them on how to advance their sustainability strategy. I worked in the food and beverage sector, so I was supporting on engagements with our corporate members that were General Mills, Brown-Forman, Dunkin' Brands, PepsiCo, and Coca-Cola. I was there for about 3 years, and I learned a whole lot. And after that, I went briefly to actually join a university, and I was a sustainability manager at Harvard Law School, where I was implementing some student engagement programs there and working on some issues such as food waste. I was only there for a short time before coming to Ocean Spray, and I've had 2 slightly different positions at Ocean Spray. About a year and a half ago, I transitioned from working with our previous director, and now I am leading our overarching program. I cannot see the time anymore on my computer screen, so I'm going to maybe pause there, and I'm happy to talk about some of the other discussion topics, such as struggles and opportunities when we get into discussion, and I'm happy to answer any questions, but I'll pause there and maybe have Alex share a little bit about himself so we can get into a great discussion.
That was awesome. Thank you, Jen.
Of course.
Alex, let me know if you have any trouble sharing your screen.
No, can you see it?
Yep.
Yeah, we can see it.
All right, let me go into presentation mode. So one interesting thing that we didn't know this before Jen and I got to do this is actually the CEO when I joined Tyson Foods is now her CEO. So that's Tom Hayes. So that's kind of interesting. I just put that together whenever you're starting. So
and I saw your
kind of interesting.
I was like, oh, this is going to be really interesting.
Yeah, so it's kind of small world. So we're both in the agriculture sector. So again, as mentioned, I am senior manager in sustainability with Tyson Foods. And just to kind of look at my role within Tyson Foods, I've been with Tyson for about 2 years now. I did graduate, and you'll see this probably a little bit later. I graduated from Villanova's master's program back in 2014, I believe. So So it took me a long time actually to get into a sustainability role. Now, in the meantime, I was working in energy and energy efficiency, which does have its play, and that's really kind of my segue into to get in this role. But real quick, kind of high level stuff about Tyson Foods is we are the largest U.S. food company with 2019 sales of over $42 billion. We have over 141 employees worldwide, and you'll see just kind of a list of our brands that I put off to the side. So we're not just a chicken company, which is what most people think. We're a lot bigger than that. And actually, company-wide, we sell more beef than we do chicken. So anyway, those are some of our brands. But that being said, to work in a role in sustainability, you get to kind of touch everything. So across all these brands, I get to play a small role in helping them get better. We're always looking at ways to make things better. We're looking for ways to continuous, push for that continuous improvement, think differently. You're constantly pushing the business to get better. And honestly, it can be a challenge, but with every challenge is really an opportunity. So we think, why would sustainability be really so important to Tyson as we look out? And these numbers are from 2 years ago, so they're probably just a little bit different. But as of 2 years ago, there's 7.6 billion people. If we project this out, there's going to be another billion by 2030, and then we're looking at 2 billion people, that more people on this planet that we have to feed. So we're not given more land. So we've just got to do a lot better with what we do have to make sure that people do have nourishment in the future. And we're talking our kids and grandkids and great grandkids and on. So it is a big deal. We have to get smarter. We have to put focus on new technologies to get there and different ways of thinking. So this is really what's driving Tyson's kind of our thinking as we approach sustainability. Now, my particular role within Tyson has to do around our greenhouse gases. So I told you my background really got started was with energy. We have within the walls of Tyson, the majority of our greenhouse gases is going to come from our electricity and natural gas usage. Now we look across supply chain and it's a little different. So we do have a full transportation fleet. The easy thing about transportation is the newer technologies, the more efficient trucks save money, so they're naturally progressing that way anyway without much push. Looking at distribution centers and getting smarter with routes, again, that saves money, and they're always actively looking at that. So we can look at, let me see, I've got a screen that's covering mine. It does go all the way out to the farmers. Now, our farmers are not, owners of Tyson, but we do have contract farmers. We have farmers that participate with us. So really, what can we do in those realms? And, honestly, beef gets a bad rap when we talk about greenhouse gases. And it's, the joke is it's all around flatulence, beef farts, cows out there in the field farting. Actually, look that up. It's belching. The farting's funnier, but the belching is actually the issue there. So, so we're actively looking at, that side of the things too. And there's a lot of research going on to feed additives to reduce that gas buildup. There's a lot of focus from other countries even that's kind of tackling that, and we're actively engaged on those. Where I primarily fit is this operations side. So, how can we get more efficient within our plants? How can we do better with what we have? Looking at renewable energy and so on. So there's a whole lot that goes on within Tyson. And again, we're a small group. Even with how many people we have and how big we are, we're still a small group when you look at the company, the group as a whole. So real quick, and you're gonna see a little bit about me. I'm really all over the place. So I've always been one of those people that I'm just trying to figure out what I want to do with my life. And you'll see this. So I did graduate in 2005 with a bachelor's in mechanical engineering and an associate's in nuclear technology. And that was from Arkansas Tech University. My first job out of college, now I graduated 2005. So if you know anything about that time frame, 2006 is whenever everything went bad. So the jobs, I got one job offer, and that was me going and handing out, hand delivering resumes. One job offer. I did do that for 2 years. Learned a lot. It was a sales role that I didn't never think I'd get in the sales position, but it was interesting. So this is a air conditioning company, so Carrier. Did that for a couple of years. To be honest, I hated it. And actually decided that's when I took a step back and decided to teach high school math. And I did start an engineering program at the high school I was teaching out. Now, if you know anything about teaching jobs in the United States of America, you can't. It's hard to live off that without taking on other jobs. So I did drive a school bus. I wouldn't wish that upon anybody. Mornings were fine because the kids were asleep, but afternoons when you have kindergartners all the way up to seniors in high school, it's the little kids. The little kids are hard. But I also taught college classes at the university that I went to. Did move on from that when we decided to move close to where my wife's family lives up in Northwest Arkansas. So I was able to get back into engineering, and that's where I entered the energy space. Did that for 4 years. During that time is whenever I signed up and went through Villanova's Masters of Sustainable Engineering program. So, and again, I'm losing my screen here because of people's faces. So from there, I did finish that up in 2014. Went on to be an energy program manager for another air conditioning company. So I landed back in air conditioning. Did that honestly, and I was just waiting and watching for jobs in the area to open up to get me into a sustainability role. And that's when Tyson, back in 2018, gave me that opportunity. So I'm going to do a quick time check and see, do we want to go ahead and just do this together? Since Jen didn't get into the challenges and opportunities?
Yeah, I'm muting. We can, you can start and I can riff off of you if you'd like.
Okay, that sounds good. So in mine, I went kind of personal challenges too. So I told you I'm in Northwest Arkansas. So we do have several Fortune 500 companies here. So we've got Walmart. Everybody knows who Walmart is. They're number one right there on the list, I think. Tyson Foods. And then we've got JB Hunt as well, which is the transportation company, all right here. So when you look at sustainability, Tyson Foods, we've got over 140,000 people that work here, and we have a really small sustainability team. So it's really hard to jump into those roles without first giving that opportunity. So that was a challenge for me. I would say I had a location constraint because my wife really wanted to be up here with her family. So that really had me looking at 3 companies just waiting for the perfect opportunity to open up. So, and that was something that was just important to me. The old saying, the happy wife, happy life. There's a lot of truth to that. So it's worked out, luckily for me. And really, this is the main one. This is going to be everybody. Someone's going to take a chance on you. So proving that, how do you get someone to take a chance on? Luckily, I had, the energy experience. We had just set this 30% greenhouse gas reduction by 2030, and still contemplating within Tyson how do we do that. Energy is our biggest opportunity to take advantage of it. So they needed someone in that role to do it. So, and I would say, and I'll get into that. Actually, I'll just go ahead and jump into that real quick. Honestly, Villanova's program helped me get this job. So there were a lot of answers that I could provide to, my incoming manager, because he was trying to figure out things too, because he didn't come from the sustainability world. He came from the agricultural world. So I had a great interview, and honestly, I used the things that I learned at Villanova to help me through that. All right, Jen, you're up.
Yeah, well, I didn't create slides on my challenges and opportunities, but I can certainly, what you're saying, I feel like resonates a bit with me, but in a slightly different way. just starting on some of the challenges, certainly when I share with people that I work in sustainability, usually the response is, "Oh my God, that's so cool." And it is cool. I love my job. But to Alex's point, working specifically in corporate sustainability, it can be a really hard time finding a specific opportunity within a company. And I think my opportunity came a bit from luck and a bit from hard work. And I similarly was looking for internal corporate sustainability jobs, especially when I was transitioning from my role from Series to Harvard and Harvard to elsewhere. And I actually didn't have a physical location constraint, and it was still really difficult. I had a lot of interviews at a lot of places, not necessarily only companies, also other big NGOs, and there was just always a lot of competition. So it just took the right time and the right opportunity, and just for everything to align for me to specifically get my job at Ocean Spray. But saying all of that, what I also like to tell people about sustainability roles is that you don't necessarily have to have sustainability in your title, whether it's at a company or at an NGO, to work on issues that you're passionate about. There are a whole host of different people that I work with internally that I call them my internal champions that are really getting some of the more technical work done. And some of those folks are engineers, like in our operations or in our corporate, headquarters, that are advising all of our own facilities to really increase energy efficiency, or our packaging engineers that are really looking to design packaging more sustainably. I'm certainly there to advise and consult on certain projects, but they have to help because I'm not an engineer by trade. So, that's my advice for people that are really interested in this role and type of work. In terms of other challenges that I've faced, I would say generally in my career, not necessarily specifically to corporate sustainability, because I think, a job, when you have different types of jobs and you start to work in different organizations, you do also realize that some work challenges are going to be challenges no matter where you go. And as I was taking some notes in preparation for, this opportunity to talk to you all, I realized that I had people as both an opportunity, but also a challenge. For me, I've certainly had really great mentors. As I was mentioning, Dr. Olson was super supportive of me when I was at Villanova. I remember having a conversation with him back when I was still trying to decide what I wanted to do after graduation. And I was like, I don't know, maybe I would be interested at some point getting a PhD, but I don't know if I could do it. And he was just like, oh no, you could do it. And it takes the people that can believe in you to really make you see that you can succeed and you can do projects and goals that maybe you didn't necessarily think you could before. But people can also be a challenge. You can have people that just don't have the time or energy to give you an opportunity, whether it's on a particular project or it's a specific job, and that can be a really big challenge. There were certainly times when I was told no, or now's not the right time, and for certain particular growth opportunities for me, that was really, really difficult and really challenging. But ultimately, now when I look back, I think about how it, really made me have perspective in terms of the successes that I experience now, because I can remember the challenging times that I had to go through to get me where I am today. And the only other, I guess, opportunity and maybe slight difference between me and Alex is that my experience at Villanova was certainly in undergrad. So it's a little bit different. And for me about 10 years ago, which is crazy that time has flown by that much. And, you know, so my career has really evolved and grown a lot since just studying biology, but I do really and feel that my experience at Villanova did create that foundation of service and giving back. And I was appreciative of the hard science background that I got, because a lot of environmental sustainability issues really are fundamentally, whether it's an ecological imbalance or a technical solve in a more built environment, a science mind and experience is super helpful in being able to articulate and be knowledgeable about some of the issues. So I'm very appreciative of both that hard science as well as the just real service dedication that probably pushed me from Villanova to AmeriCorps and further exposed me to a whole host of different sustainability options, because I was working for a corps of about 30 that were focused on a whole bunch of different environmental and social impact projects within the community of Knoxville, Tennessee. And I was exposed to how NGOs worked on issues and government entities worked on issues. And that was a really formative experience for me to kind of continue on my path. So with that, oh, actually, I had one more thing. I also studied abroad when I was in undergrad at Villanova, and I was very appreciative at the time that the study abroad office was able to provide connections and flexibility to other alternative study abroad programs. So I did my study abroad through the School for International Training, or the entity SIT, which is a third-party organization and not tied to any specific university. And I did a program called Wildlife Ecology and Conservation in Tanzania. And so I was able to get exposure to some really big global issues in what is a developing country. And so just a lot of my traveling and field experiences that I did in undergrad really gave me that global view as well, which I always think about even today. And I will stop there for maybe questions, or if Alex, you had anything to build off of that.
No, I'm seeing a lot of questions come in about education and sustainability roles. And Jen, you touched on that as far as, really you have to pull in a lot of different ones. To be honest, I'm the only person that I know working in sustainability, at least the people that I work around that have some type of degree linked to that. On the flip side, I don't know that I would have gotten this position had I not used that for my advantage through the interview process, because it was highly competitive. But on our team, we've got those that worked in marketing, communications, accounting. That's on our sustainability team, and also just in agriculture, since we are an agriculture company. So that's kind of my response to some of those questions. I'm seeing another. I'm trying to look through these questions in the chat. And this could be for both of us, but someone asked, looks like Noah asked, how big of a role do you think regenerative agriculture will play in the future of sustainable meat production? Now that can also, tie into, maybe some of the things you're doing at Ocean Spray too, but, it's a big one, and we talk, bad about cows and, the emissions they're putting out, but realistically, a lot of the cattle farms are in areas that we can't do anything else with. So they're in, pasture lands that is a carbon sink. So we do have carbon sequestration there. We at Tyson, we do have a 2 million acre land goal. So it's a land stewardship commitment, and it's just a play on corn. So we do mill all of our feed for our chickens. So we buy a lot of corn. So we do have a land goal that's around that. And again, there's a lot of plays on proper land management when it comes to, and I'm not the expert on this one. I can really get outside of my comfort zone on this, but when you talk about,
so Walmart just came out with new regenerative goals. So the term regenerative agriculture is certainly a very popular term, and the term regenerative in general is very popular. And I think it depends on what metric we're talking about in terms of like what is being regenerated. But yeah, I think another hot topic related to that would be soil and soil health, because the idea
that's right.
is that we're building up more or regenerating more than we're taking. And you know, I've honestly seen a little bit of mixed reviews in the science on how far we can take soil health. I certainly have high hopes that it can take us far in terms of sequestering carbon, but there are some limits there in terms of like the amount ecologically that it can absorb and how much arable land we have, etc. But yeah, I think that's something that is certainly really important, whether it's for a row company that has row crops or even with meat production, because you have alternative meat production processes, you know, of pasture lands or other natural landscapes that are on or around farms. And I'm trying to scroll through here too. And
I'm gonna repeat. Yeah, Danielle's got a question here that I like. So do you ever feel like the higher ups only, and I've got to do air quotes because she's got to do it, care only, you know, about sustainability right now because it's a hot topic? Is it difficult to convince the company to take certain steps towards sustainable goals if they might not be economically advantageous? That you hit it on the head there. So it is a hot topic, but there's also there are sweet spots that you can find that are both. It takes care of sustainability, but it's also economically, you know, feasible to do that. And that's naturally, I think, where people start. But you know, we do a lot around animal welfare because it's the right thing to do. You know, ultimately, the higher ups, as far as caring, you know, it is sometimes hard to convince, but even more than, you know, the financial, you know, it's hard to get people to change the way that they do things. And we're asking people to change their full thought processes on things that they've done for years. And it's worked for years, but it's, you know, you always go back to that Blockbuster example of, you know, if you don't change, you're not going to survive. So Tyson's done really well. And we were doing a lot of change under Tom Hayes when he was CEO, and now we just, we're going to have another CEO move into a new role in October, and he comes from X, which is a Google technology company. So I'm really kind of I'm excited to see where that takes us, because that's got to be a different mindset coming from that industry. But we even look at, you know, farming and, you know, there's sensors for pretty much everything these days. So you can figure out if you're, you know, over fertilizing. You can figure out, you know, all this, you know, if you're over watering. You can do all this stuff using technology that'll help pave the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll just build on that briefly. You know, I get that question a lot, or I certainly 10 years ago, I would have not thought I was working in corporate sustainability, because I would have been a little bit incredulous about the true intentions. But it's also, it's about the framing of what you're trying to do. And it depends a little bit on the project, but certainly, you know, there are some senior leaders or even middle managers are sometimes more impactful, that maybe in their heart of hearts care about these issues more, and they might be more likely to listen to you or to, you know, help you move a project forward. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how much they care. What matters is that you're putting together a good business case, because you need to understand the audience that you're communicating to. And the audience that you're communicating to, there are multiple different business angles to any sustainability topic. Traditionally, the main one, which is why companies have started with things like energy efficiency, or as Alex was mentioning, you know, we're part of the Smart Wave program too, because there are immediate and quick like returns on your investment or cost savings. But more and more companies are moving in the direction of recognizing sustainability issues as longer term business risks and opportunities. So it's about framing the issues that way, whether it's opportunity wise because your consumer or your customer cares about this and it's going to help you make the sale for a new contract, or generally consumers are willing to pay more for our products if we have this particular certification. Or on the risk side of things, particularly in agriculture, you know, with rising in climate change, your suppliers that are doing a quote unquote better job on certain sustainability metrics may also ones that are more reliably be able to supply you product. So it's for me, it's more importantly how I can frame whatever project that I want to work on in a way that I know the team or the leader that I'm working with is going to it's going to resonate with them. It does help when they care personally, but it's really I'm more focused on how can I frame this project for the audience. Let's see what other, but that is definitely a good question.
So I really like this question here, and I think both of you could give a good answer for it. On day one in your corporate sustainability position, how do you know where to start? You both talked about how broad sustainability is, and the work that you do. So how do you know, were you the first in your role? And if not, you know, how did you know where to start?
Yeah, I knew where to start. Honestly, my interview was kind of the start because it was, we just named these really big goals, like what would you do? So I'd already kind of begun that thought process. My answer to that is you've got to ask a million questions. You just have to question everything. And then if your main task is to, you know, change the business, you know, us coming in through sustainability, you know, especially if I'm going out to one of our processing facilities, you know, I can't go tell them what to do. You know, I've got to, honestly, I have to lead them to the right decision and have them own it. That way, when I leave, they adopt it and they continue with it. So on day one's always tough. But honestly, it's to, and I would say build relationships. You know, Jen spoke about, you know, all the people that she works with within her company that are the more technical experts. So building those relationships, figuring out who really has a natural drive towards sustainability. And this goes all the way up to the top too. I mean, sustainability stuff's fun because you get to feel good about what you're doing. So you find those people and, you know, they'll be your biggest advocates. They're in that role.
Yeah, definitely. Similarly, I also had predecessors, and while we didn't necessarily have a ton of very big public goals when I arrived, we have been rolling them out since I've been there. We had some historical ones, but they had expired a little bit prior to me getting there. So yeah, everything Alex is saying, like relationships, framing what you want to get done, building capacity in ways, you know, to kind of leave a legacy and kind of have a project stand on its own legs. The only other thing I will mention, which kind of touches back to the career kind of education piece in terms of what I got out of my master's degree, and that really helped me is some of those softer skills. So while I took strategies for sustainable development and ecosystem services, some of the harder science or like business courses, a more basic course like negotiations was super helpful just because it made you think about how to communicate to people in a way that was effective. And that's like half the battle, if not like more, because you can have a super great idea, but if you can't communicate it or pitch it or follow up, then you're not going to be successful in what you're trying to achieve. So yeah. And I think I've been trying to do that since day one, communicate and build relationships, and while building longer term strategy, but also focusing on the day-to-day, what needs to get done.
So this is a nice positive one. What are your favorite sustainability projects that you're working on at your organizations? Something that you're really excited about? Obviously, maybe the ones you haven't announced that you can't share, but the ones you can share.
Yes. Yeah, no, I'll do my best to talk about the climate strategy that I'm working on, because that is something that I'm super excited about. You know, similar to a lot of companies that have already undergone their climate strategy or are in the middle of it, have announced goals or coming out with goals, it's a little depressing, because you know that like what's needed to be done out in the world to meet the Paris Agreement, and you're trying to like crunch numbers and think about like, okay, well, how much natural gas comes out of this facility, and then it relates to this amount of carbon footprint, and what if we change this in scope 1 and scope 2 and scope 3. It can be really overwhelming, but I think what interests me about developing a climate strategy is that it is both technical, but it's also very strategic, and you have to think about the longer term buildup of what all the pieces entail and what's needed, and what conversations you need to have. And there's also some really interesting overlap with agricultural systems and what could be done with the natural carbon sequestration capacity of lands. So that's another piece that I'm exploring and related to this climate strategy. Just as an example that I should have mentioned in my presentation, one fact that we really like to share at Ocean Spray is that for every 1 acre of cranberry bed, there are 5.5 acres on average of supportive lands, and that's everything from upland forests to grasslands to open wetlands. So we're also exploring the carbon sequestration potential of those lands as a part of that strategy. So, you know, in general, like that's why I love my job being a sustainability professional. You get to constantly learn and build strategies, and unless you're asking someone for something, people are usually pretty excited to see you because they think what you're doing is interesting.
Yeah, I'd say some of the more exciting things. You know, things changed whenever COVID-19 hit, and so we had to kind of redirect and think through things differently. Because I was gearing up to be going out to our facilities. We have over 100 processing facilities just in the United States. So it was going to be kind of a big task that we're kind of gearing up to go around, really just doing a lot of information sharing and best practices, that kind of thing. COVID-19 hit, then we kind of got grounded. You know, I'm still working from home. And so got to spend a lot of time and refocus that effort towards our corporate renewable energy strategy. And that's real fascinating, you know, what companies are doing in that space. And it's looking way beyond. I see there's a question about solar panels out on the farms. And we are doing some of that. We don't have dairy cows, but we did sponsor the first off-grid poultry house with Auburn University. We did do that. We don't own those farms, so it would really just be us participating and helping that be a good financial decision for the actual farmers. There are maybe some other opportunities there, maybe on the beef and the pork side. But we're looking at large utility scale type projects. So, you know, a lot of people think back at, I remember there was a Super Bowl commercial, I think about 2 years ago, that was a Budweiser commercial where, you know, you had the Clydesdales that were going through the big wind field. And they were saying that, you know, Budweiser US is, sorry, I got a fly buzzing. Budweiser US is 100% renewable. And so they don't actually get those electrons. That's a financial play that you can do to help that developer of that renewable field to to get the project funded. And then it's a financial play where you're buying that power directly from the developer, and you're selling it back into the grid. So you're acting as a utility company, which is scary if you've never done that before. And so again, you have to level set with your company. You know, we're not an electricity company, so we've got to kind of learn that so we feel comfortable, so we don't lose money. It's also an opportunity you can make money. So there's a risk play there, which is kind of interesting. But it's been great to kind of walk through that process and, you know, work with consultants that are experts to help you understand that so that you can make a good decision. We have not moved forward with one of those projects just yet, but we expect to here pretty soon.
So for our last question, I like to kind of end it on kind of advice for our students, for those who are going to be looking for jobs soon. This is an historically bad market, and you both have talked about, you know, trying to find your current career and the path you took. You know, it's not necessarily a straight path, but you know, there's always benefits along the way, things that you learn. And so, you know, just for those students who, you know, graduating from undergrad or graduating from grad school, right? They have a different situation, but maybe just some general suggestions that you give our students as they start looking for these jobs that'll hopefully end up being, you know, a pathway to their career. And we have a specific question around interviews and the confidence, you know, how to portray that confidence when maybe you haven't had a role that, you know, is directly correlated with what you're trying to apply for, right? You know, you all kind of made some jumps. There were some connections, but you know, you didn't have sustainability in your names before. How do you get to that sustainability job without having it beforehand, I guess?
Jen, do you want to start it?
Yeah, I'm trying to decide what to say that's most helpful. You know, I didn't necessarily start out, I think neither of us did specifically in corporate sustainability. I have, for the most part, enjoyed most of my jobs, but I've also had challenges in most of my jobs. And, you know, certainly my current job is pretty close to my ideal job, which is great, but it took a while to get there. And so I guess partly I want to say have patience, but also maybe look for jobs that you think will help be a building block towards maybe where you eventually want to go. And, you know, just even read some basic job descriptions on both the soft skills of what they're talking about, like communications, negotiations, as well as like the harder technical skills that maybe folks are looking for. And there's a whole host of different corporate sustainability jobs or corporate jobs that don't have sustainability in the title. So I would just think really hard about like what you like to do day to day, because in corporate sustainability, you can be kind of a generalist, overarching strategist like me. You can be more of a technical person working on some specific energy and GHG projects like Alex, where like an engineer background is more appropriate and relevant. But you can also be someone that does all of the sustainability reporting. And in that case, you know, a biology degree and a bachelor or a master's in engineering and may not be as relevant. So there's lots of different corporate sustainability jobs, and it's also kind of like reading between the lines of what the day-to-day tasks would be, and just matching up your soft and your hard skills, and not being afraid to take a position that maybe eventually kind of like can give you experience into that direction. Yeah,
No, I think that's a great answer. You know, going to the interview question, you've got to prepare before you get there. You've got to know whatever you can about that company and about their sustainability. You know, a lot of companies these days do have sustainability reports that are out there that you can read through, and I mean, you need to have that thing memorized. With me, you know, there was such a good job description whenever they posted that job that I had. Actually, I got advisement from someone else that told me to go through that, and I broke out each section that they had in that job description and talked about my credentials. This is why I fit this, even if it's a stretch. I mean, it's a sales job, right? So even if it's a stretch, you come up with something, and I did it beforehand, and I actually like handed that to, he ended up being my manager. That's my advice. I also, and again, got advisement from, actually one of my wife's cousins, but I went back and set a 30, 60, 90-day plan of what I'm going to be doing when I first start. And so that got me thinking, but it also, what it did is it gave my manager he didn't know anything about energy. He didn't know how we were going to do this, and he made that known in the interview. But he was looking for guidance. He was looking for someone that could step in and get hit the ground running. So, I gave him that 30, 60, 90-day plan. And so he didn't really have to think so much about, oh, great, well, he's already got a plan, maybe he's the right person for this job. But it was a longer road for me too. Just waiting that opportunity to come up. I'd say for me, it took a lot of prayer on my end as I sat there and waited. And again, my timing's not perfect. And I know Villanova is a Christian college, but I'll say God's timing is. So a lot of times we just have to sit back and be patient.
Awesome. That was, both of you had some really great advice. Thank you so much. Every panelist has had something different to share, and so that's really wonderful. I hope our students, are able to capture that and apply it to their job hunting. So at this time, I'd like to thank you both so much for sharing your time, your knowledge, and your experience with our students. And encourage students, if you want to connect with our panelists, to connect with them via LinkedIn. I know Alex already threw your page in there. That's great. So if you want to connect with any of our panelists, we suggest you do it through that. Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm going to stop recording.